If you have ADHD and your English is intermediate or B1, and you feel stuck, frustrated, or tired of trying, this message is for you, especially if you still translate everything in your head. You watch movies, series, or YouTube videos, and you understand a lot, but when you need to speak, your mind goes blank. You know the words, but they don't come. You feel slow, insecure, and sometimes you think something is wrong with you. Let me be very clear. Nothing is wrong with you. This happens because translation is keeping you trapped. Translation creates a delay between sound and meaning. For people with ADHD, this delay is exhausting. Your brain already processes many things at the same time. When you translate, you are forcing your brain to stop, switch languages, analyze, and then speak. That is too much. This is why you feel tired, anxious, and blocked. This is why you feel stuck at the intermediate level. Most people with ADHD were taught to learn English in a way that does not respect how their brain works. Memorizing rules, translating sentences, and chasing perfection creates pressure, and pressure kills learning. Fluency is not about knowing more grammar. Fluency is about automatic understanding. And automatic understanding only happens when you stop translating. And the worst part is that this constant translation slowly destroys your confidence. Every time you hesitate, every time you freeze while speaking, your brain learns one message: English is stressful. For someone with ADHD, stress shuts down focus even more, so you try harder, but your results get worse. You start avoiding conversations, avoiding speaking practice, and sometimes even avoiding English completely. Not because you can't learn, but because the way you were taught makes your brain feel unsafe.
Your brain translates because it feels safe. Translation gives you control. It feels like studying. But real English is not logical first. It is emotional and contextual first. Native speakers don't think about words. They react to situations, emotions, and intentions. When you translate, you are turning English into a math problem instead of a living language. For ADHD learners, this is even harder because working memory is limited. Translation overloads your mind. That is why you understand less when you try harder. The solution is not effort. The solution is a different approach. You must train your brain to connect sound directly to meaning. This means accepting confusion. Confusion is not failure. Confusion is the moment your brain is learning something new. If you always understand everything, you are not growing. When you listen and don't translate, your brain starts guessing. Guessing is good. Guessing builds intuition. Intuition is what fluent speakers use. Instead of asking, "What does this word mean in my language?" ask, "What is happening here? How does this person feel? What is the intention?" This shift changes everything. At first, this way of learning may feel uncomfortable and even slow. Your brain will want to go back to translation because it feels familiar and predictable. That is normal, especially for ADHD minds that seek structure and certainty. But with consistent exposure, something important happens. Your brain starts recognizing patterns automatically. You begin to understand phrases as complete units, not as individual words. This is when English starts to feel lighter, faster, and more natural. And this is the moment when real fluency begins to replace effort.
Now, let's talk about what actually works for people with ADHD. First, short, repeated exposure. Do not watch long scenes once. Watch short scenes many times. 5 to 10 seconds is perfect. The first time, you will translate. The second time, less. The third time, your brain starts recognizing patterns. After that, meaning becomes automatic. This is how you kill translation. Second, shadowing. Shadowing means listening and repeating at the same time, even if you don't understand every word. You are training rhythm, intonation, and flow. Fluency lives in rhythm, not grammar. When you shadow, you stop thinking and start reacting. This is perfect for ADHD brains because it removes overthinking. Third, don't pause too much. Pausing to analyze every sentence reinforces translation. Let the language flow. Trust your brain. You don't need to catch every word. You need to catch the message. Fourth, one source, one accent. ADHD brains get overwhelmed easily. Choose one series, one accent, one type of content. Consistency creates safety. Safety allows learning. Finally, make your learning emotionally light.
Pressure kills progress, especially for ADHD learners. You do not need to study harder to improve. You need to make English feel safe, familiar, and predictable. When your brain knows what to expect, it relaxes. And when it relaxes, learning happens faster. Progress comes from calm repetition, not from forcing results. If you stay consistent with these habits, translation slowly disappears, not because you fight it, but because your brain no longer needs it. Over time, you will notice small changes. You react faster, you understand before you think, and most importantly, English stops feeling like a problem to solve and starts feeling like something you can live inside. This is the real sign that translation is fading and fluency is taking its place. One of the biggest enemies of fluency is perfectionism. Many people with ADHD want to speak perfectly or not speak at all. This mindset keeps you silent. Fluent speakers were not fluent because they were perfect, they were fluent because they spoke anyway. You must give yourself permission to speak badly. Broken sentences are part of learning. Mistakes are not embarrassing, they are data. Every mistake teaches your brain what to adjust next time. When you stop fearing mistakes, translation loses power. Another important tip: separate learning from performance. When you study, don't judge yourself. When you speak, don't analyze yourself. Evaluation comes later. This reduces anxiety and mental overload. Also, remember, grammar improves naturally with exposure. You don't need to force it. When you hear correct structures many times, your brain absorbs them automatically. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. You don't need long, exhausting study sessions. You need frequent contact with English that feels manageable. 10 or 15 minutes every day is more powerful than 2 hours once a week. For ADHD brains, regular exposure builds familiarity, and familiarity builds confidence. When English becomes a normal part of your routine, not a performance, your brain stops panicking and starts responding automatically. This is where fluency grows quietly, without pressure.
If you have ADHD, learning English may feel lonely. You may think everyone else learns faster. But your brain is not broken. It is different. And when you learn in a way that respects your brain, progress becomes real. You don't need long study sessions. You need frequent, calm exposure. 10 minutes every day is better than 2 hours once a week. Repetition builds confidence. Confidence kills translation. Remember this: you don't need to translate to understand. You don't need to understand everything to improve. You don't need to be perfect to be fluent. Fluency comes from trust. Trust the process. Trust your brain. If you keep listening, repeating, and exposing yourself to English in a calm way, your English will change. And you are not alone in this journey. This channel exists for people like you, people who want to learn without pressure, without shame, and without fighting their own brain. You can do this, and you are already on the right path. And the most important step is commitment without self-punishment. Some days you will feel focused, other days distracted. That is normal for ADHD. Progress is not linear, and it does not need to be. What matters is that you return. Every time you come back to English, even after a bad day, you are reinforcing the habit that leads to fluency. Over time, English stops feeling like a challenge and starts feeling familiar. That is the real transformation, when the language becomes part of you, not something you have to force.
At this point, I want you to understand something very important. Fluency is not a moment, it is a process. And for people with ADHD, this process is different, but not worse. When you stop fighting your brain and start working with it, English slowly becomes lighter. You don't feel the same pressure, you don't feel the same fear. You start understanding faster, even when you don't try so hard. Some days you will still translate. That does not mean you failed. It means your brain is tired, distracted, or overloaded. Progress is not linear, especially with ADHD. What matters is not being perfect every day. What matters is coming back. Every time you listen without translating, every time you repeat without analyzing, you are training your brain to trust English. With time, something changes. You stop thinking about grammar. You stop searching for words in your language first. You start feeling what sounds right. This is the real advanced level. Not perfect sentences, but natural reactions. Not control, but flow. This is how you leave the intermediate stage behind. If learning English has ever made you feel alone, frustrated, or slow, remember this: you are not broken. You were just taught in a way that does not respect how your mind works. This channel exists for people like you. People with ADHD who want to learn English calmly, clearly, and without pressure. Stay consistent, keep your exposure short, trust repetition, trust your brain, and most important, don't give up on yourself. Your English can change, and you don't have to do this alone.